Hey, hello everyone. I feel like I need a theme tune for this moment, theme tune kind of moment. I'm so excited to be here today. Talk to Moi, which is just a beautiful, just a beautiful space that we've landed in intuitively. I wanted to have conversations around sexual reclamation within this cycle, this season of Scorpio, and it feels so powerful. And we're going to have a conversation a little bit about the astrology, and because we've just crossed the new moon in Scorpio, so we're kind of landing in it. And Umoh is a highly regarded astrologer, witch, and shamanic strategist. Her expertise is in blending the sacred and the strategic. So I feel like we are on point here. So welcome, Umoh.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and get to talk about some of my favorite subjects.
I'm so excited because it's become one of my favorite subjects, astrology. The more that I've just kind of tuned in intuitively, that I want to know more. Like when I feel, oh, there's something going on here that I like, and then I want to find out more about it. So I'd love actually to hear how you first got into astrology before we dive into it.
Well, it's very, very along with the sexual reclamation theme. Right. So I was very boy crazy when I was young. And when I was in high school, I kind of was like sort of shy, but not exactly. I was kind of getting my social footing. And so I wanted like a strategy to have like an in or an edge with boys, And so that's what drew me into astrology. And I was like reading all these books and learning the charts and, and it was working. And I was like, ha, ha, ha. And it was like, I had this magic trick to like, okay, he's a fire sign, he's gonna like this. Or like, okay, he's the earth sign, he's gonna be a little more uptight, like as we were talking about how we are earlier. We want to plan. No sun moves.
Nope. None.
Yeah, so that's how I got started. And then I just got like deeper and deeper into it over time. And the more I learned, the more exciting and fascinated, I became. And a big part of it was actually connected sort of to the sexual reclamation. So I was raised Catholic, very repressed, very closed-minded. My parents were both very conservative in that way. My dad's from Africa, so it's very patriarchal. I never saw my parents hug or kiss or anything because like in his culture, you don't do that. That's considered like very trashy. Yeah. And so I was just always confused. And so like there was like this just absence, this just like void of sexualness allowed. But I always kind of felt that energy. And I remember like, I don't remember, it was like maybe in third grade because I went to Catholic school. And I remember one of the nuns saying like, oh, not to have sex until you get married. And even as I was that young, I was just like, yeah, right. I'm not going to do that. I was like, that's not for me. That's not for me, And so, of course, even though I kind of followed my own path, I still had a lot of shame around it, But when I looked at my chart, there was just sex all over my chart. And I was like, like it was such a relief.
Yeah.
I literally started to cry. And I was like, there's nothing wrong with me. This is how God made me. It's written in the stars. Like, I'm not fucked up. This is me, So that was a very, very like healing experience for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. There's something so powerful about seeing wisdom or something written that you can kind of speak to it. It's like a conversation, like you're having the experience, but then to kind of have the conversation with the mystical side of yourself as well. It's so powerful. So I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I really resonate with that as well, because I feel those of us who are kind of walking quite a, you know, edgy path, let's say, it can feel like, you know, having support, receiving things that like help us and hold us and just, you know, keep us guiding and going, and can be so helpful. I love astrology. I love it.
Me too. Yeah. So yeah, that's how I got into it. And then I just was doing charts for everybody all the time. And then, you know, when I used to work in this restaurant, and we had a very like family kind of vibes. I'm still friends with my she was my boss at the time. And so I used to like do charts for the other waitresses, and then I would be like, oh, let's do a composite chart, or let's do synastry for you and this guy that you like, and I'll tell you if he's a good match for you, or what are the red flags to watch out for. And that was like, you know, so I was doing it long before I ever had it as like work, you know.
Yeah, you were like studying it
in
life. That's fun.
Yeah.
And with the astrology now, which seems hot, I just keep seeing like the fire. I keep wanting to use the fire emoji for everything, just even in like messages to my friends. Just like,
it's so apropos. It's super hot right now. So let's talk about it.
Yeah,
let's talk about it. So we are filming this early UK time, middle of the night, California time. And so it is just about an hour past the Scorpio new moon, which is bringing in all the fiery energy. Scorpio is the water sign that is fiery, right? Because it's ruled by Mars, and Mars is fire and sex.
There we go.
Yes, Mars is the co-ruler. So Mars is the traditional ruler, and then Pluto is the new ruler. So Pluto wasn't discovered till like, I think 1930. So astrology is, you know, super old. So in the older tradition, Mars rules Scorpio. So so we have all the fiery energy. And then so we have the sun and the moon is in Scorpio right now. And then we have the Mars is also in Scorpio. So we have, you know, that ruling planet in its home sign. So it's all the scorpionic, all the fiery energy is just like whoosh, super hot right now. It's like blossoming, it's opening, and it's also, Scorpio is the most intense sign. So it's not necessarily gentle. It's definitely edgy. It pushes us out of our comfort zone, but it's also like very like powerful and potent and juicy, you know?
Yeah.
So there's that.
I always say, like, if we can lean into Scorpio, there's so much healing there. Like, if we can lean into what is coming up, the shadow, the discomfort, and really realize that our reclamation is within working with the energy coming up rather than wanting to shut it down or repress it because it's scary or it's unknown or it feels like edgy, like you were saying. So I always like to say, can we lean in? Can we get kind of curious? Can we feel kind of excited that this could be an opportunity for deeper understanding of self and actually feeling empowered by it? How can we feel empowered by what's coming up right now?
Yes, yes. And I mean, it's one of my favorite signs, and there is so much to it. It's so layered and multidimensional and rich. And yes, like the shadow, like to me, Scorpio definitely rules shadow work. It rules the underworld. The whole myth of Persephone is like also very ripe right now, and we're at that time of the year. that we're turning from the light to the dark. We're going, you know, from out of the summer, out of the beginning of fall. Like this is into the fall, right? We're going down into the descent, which is also all the feminine. And it's just something we've been like brainwashed in the ultra masculine paradigm to think of as bad, wrong, evil, when it's actually an incredible resource, like you said, for healing, transformation, tapping into our own power, knowing ourselves, knowing the divine, knowing our animal selves, just so many versions, you know, our sexual selves. So it's like supercharged for magic on all levels, you know?
Yeah, I'm almost feeling like, what would a suggestion of a ritual be for this time for like tapping into power?
Well, I'm actually, this is where I'm not maybe like how other people are. I don't think every time is a good time for a ritual. And there's more layers to this specific new moon that makes it complicated.
Mhm.
And there's some very chaotic energy, which Scorpio can be anyways. So, and we're just coming out of eclipse season. I'll say, so I don't actually recommend doing any rituals right now. I specifically recommend not doing any rituals right now. But it's like kind of like if you were, you know, trying to light a candle in the middle of a wildfire.
Yeah, yeah, I can see
You don't need it right now. You don't need it, you know? And it might just not give you what you want, or it might be like too strong and you can't control it. And it's like, oh, that's not where I wanted it to go. You know what I mean? So I know a lot of people think, oh, whatever, do it whenever. I'm not of that mind, you know? So let me tell you some of the other layers. So we just had Mars opposite Uranus, exact, I think it was yesterday or the day before. So that is influencing the energy of this new moon. So Mars, like I said, is in Scorpio. Opposite is the most challenging aspect. It's opposite Uranus, which is in Taurus. Taurus and Scorpio, two fixed signs, two stubborn signs, two signs that want what the fuck they want, and they want it in opposite directions.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then Mars, like I said, Mars is a planet of sex, war, aggression. It's really intense. And then Uranus is the planet that rules, it rules chaotic energy, the unexpected, like a sudden change,
Mhm.
extreme change. It's associated with the Tower card in the tarot. So it's just not like, it's not an energy to fuck around with.
Yeah. Straight to it.
Yes. So what I say in this kind of energy, you don't work it, you let it work you.
Yeah. Mm.
So you don't have to do anything extra. You just have to be available. You have to be present. You don't have to. But in order to naturally just garner the gifts of this time, all you have to do is be present, available, and open to receive what's already so like powerfully in the energetic field.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And so for me yesterday, I was intuitively feeling grounded. Just like, for me being an earth sign, which we both are, and Warren, me, I'm a Capricorn and you're a Virgo. And so for me, whenever this kind of powerful kind of fire energy comes up and this invitation for transformation, I go, okay, how can I ground this? I want to feel it. I want to kind of own it. I want to claim it in a very supported way, I suppose, for me, because Earth is where I go whenever I need to just, really feel connected. So, I mean, I have been working with going out in nature and just walking and kind of moving with the energy.
Yes.
Like, let it move through you. Walk, breathe, dance. Dance also is it's a huge piece for me. Just like move your body and kind of, because it can be easy to sort of shut down, can't it? And you'd be like, hold on. It's like, oh, buckle up, like
Yeah.
on. It's like, okay, remember the body, remember to breathe,
Yes.
remember to ground, remember to
Yeah.
allow, like you said, remember that kind of you are the ritual as well, aren't you, yourself? Already
Exactly.
happening.
Yes, you know. And I love rituals, and I'm a ritualist. I'm very into it. But I'm just also, I'm an astrologist first, and this isn't the time.
Okay, no more fire.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe a bath.
Exactly. And so I love that you brought that up, the moving the energy, because Scorpio is, even though it's all the fiery energy, it is a water sign, right? And that is what water is calling us to do. The water is calling us to move. Water is the most, you know, I don't know what's the word that, but you know, it's the element that moves around the most, right?
Yeah.
So like earth is solid, and then fire is, you know, and air, but like water changes form, right? Water can be, you know, steam, it could be rain, it can be ice, it could be a trickle, it could be a hurricane or a tidal wave, you know, like it can come in so many different forms. So I love what you said about the like moving with the energy, let it, the form keep changing, keep moving it. Don't try and like when alcoholics or get in car accidents, they're usually fine. Like they'll, like the drunk drivers.
That's true.
Right? They'll kill everybody else, but they'll be fine. And the reason why is because they're so drunk, they don't tense up. They just let themselves flop all around, and they don't absorb the impact. And it moves right through them.
Yeah.
So
That's
like
that's a dark scorpionic example.
It totally is.
I love it. That's so on theme.
Yes, yes. So like what you said, like don't, like, yes, ground, but don't buckle down.
That's what I have to remind myself, because I do the grounding first. I normally do grounding first for everything because of that earth. I feel really supported with the earth. And then it's like, okay, and now what do I need to do, instead of just kind of staying like, okay, cool, let's move with this. And yeah, very, very powerful to also bring through the information as well. Like, how do we know what it is that we're receiving or needing to do without moving, without opening up to receive? And I feel movement is one of those practices that just, you open your channel when you're moving, you receive more information when you're moving.
Definitely. That was weird. Does it sound funny, the speaker?
I don't know what happened.
No, it's not sounding weird on your side. It just made my voice super distorted. It sounded like a demon.
We are so right. It's happening. We're transmuting as we're talking.
Right? We're moving it all. And so I was also thinking about like the energy. Why was I thinking about this? I'm trying to remember. I don't know. But I was thinking about the energy moving, like that idea of moving energy. Oh, this is what I was thinking about. I was thinking about how we resist death, right? Because Scorpio also rules death. Death, sex, and transformation, right? Those are like some of the big words for Scorpio. And so a lot of times we really resist death because we're afraid of it, and we don't understand it because it's not something that's part of our cultural paradigm, right? But if you resist death, you stay stuck. And like what you don't allow to die is blocking the new and the next evolution, the bigger, the better, the more beautiful, the richer, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about the idea, because of the water sign, of being supple, energetically supple. And I was thinking about how we prevent that by pushing away the death and the darkness that Scorpio's inviting us into.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, death is a huge one, isn't it? It's really such a big part of cycle of life, and yet it's something so hidden and so kind of hush hush. Like everything, as you said, in the feminine realm is what we're reclaiming and what we're learning to reclaim through, this time. This time is about the reclamation of the feminine and the cycles of death, birth, rebirth. And when we really start to work with that in embodiment, which is what I do, and I'm sure you teach as well, is like there's just so much more available when we can learn to move within all of the cycles of the rhythms of the feminine. And then there are things that we are not scared of anymore because we make them in ourselves. Whereas when we have this kind of externalized idea of death, there's just so much fear around it because we haven't met it in ourselves. Yes. So I feel like that's a powerful invitation to kind of to meet the death within yourself and it being part of a rite of passage to more of who you are, and that we don't need to fear it.
Yeah. And also, this time of the year is related and connected to, the Day of the Dead, Halloween, all whatever different incarnations, so it's also that energy of connecting with our dead people, our ancestors or people that, I had a dream about my dad. He passed away in 2016. And my dad always, I don't have a dream about him. He comes to me in my dreams, and he doesn't come very often, but he always comes with like a message every time. And last time he came was a little over a year ago, or maybe like a year and a half. And then I dreamed about him like a couple days after Halloween. And this time he brought these like young ancestors with him. And I was just hanging out with them. And it was like really fun and cool. And they were like really nice. And then they were like, all right, kid, bye. And it was just like, really beautiful. But it's like, I'm a person who receives things in my dreams, but part of it is because I'm open to that. I'm available. And I was talking about my dad and I was like, he hasn't come and visited me in a long time. And I just tried to feel his energy and I couldn't like tune in. And then 2 days later, he came in my dreams,
Yeah, I love that. That inviting it as well. Like, I want that. Thank you.
Yes.
Just letting it
happen. Instead of being scared,
Yeah.
And then like also I was thinking about the crone, because the crone is also associated with the season. And I'm like very passionate about the crone and I love the crone energy. And that's another thing. Like I see all these older women always being like, I don't identify with the crone. I want to be the queen. And I'm like, okay, be the queen, but the fucking crone is like 100 times more powerful than the queen, know? But we don't understand the crone, and our interpretation of the crone is like the hag.
Yeah.
Right? That's what people think of when they think of the crone. And that's like maybe one face of many, many faces of the crone, right? It makes me think of, did you ever see Game of Thrones?
I didn't actually. Probably like the only person who hasn't watched it.
Okay, well, there's this one character that they're of the religion where they can change their face and they can put on any face that they want. And that totally reminds me of the crone's energy, which is like so funny that you would push that power away, right? Because the crone encompasses all versions of the feminine, it encompasses the maiden, it encompasses the mother, it encompasses other aspects. I kind of call the fourth, I call the fourth face, the hidden face, the whore, because that's like, we've divorced the sexual, but also the crone has her in her embrace, right? So the crone has all of everything. So to me, a lot of times women are pushing away the crone because it's not sexy and it's like dried up, and I feel like the opposite. Like the crone is the sexiest. She has the fullest, deepest knowledge and wisdom of all sexual energy and expression. Like no other archetype can touch the crone, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I really agree. I have done quite a lot of work with my inner crone, and yeah, it's just like this. There is nowhere else to go. Like you're saying, she encompasses everything. And how like incredible is that? How fascinating, and just like, again, curiosity. I always talk about being curious because it's kind of a place where you can go to something and be like, oh wow, let's find out something. So maybe an invitation is to really tune into the crone. I feel like that's a great invitation right now, because she is of everything, as you said, and there's that deep support when you're working with her. That's just like the wholeness. It's your wholeness. It's all parts of you integrated into one.
Yes. And just on the sexual side too, you know, when they, you know, in French, you know, they call the orgasm the little death.
Yes.
You know, and part of it, it's like, it is that feeling that you're dying to yourself, to your experience, to the pleasure, you know. And it's also like, because that it gives you that feeling of being free of your body, you know, being free of your mortal existence. Like in that moment of the orgasm, you're kind of like suspended in time, or in line with the divine, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, totally. You know? I hear you.
And like, if we're afraid of death, we can't have that.
Yes.
You know, and the time when I was closest to the divine is when I thought I was going to die, you know. And I brought that experience, was I was 23, I think. I brought so much of that back through, and that informs so much of who I am, that experience, you know. But I wouldn't have had it without that death being so close, the energy of death being so close.
Yeah. Have you found that with people, because you said your father passed away? Does that happen for you in your life? Death kind of informs more of who you are.
Absolutely. A weird thing happened when my dad died. We were not super close. You know, me and my dad fought. We had a troubled relationship. I love my dad. We were good at the end. We were in a good place. My only regret, this was so Scorpionic, I was at the ceremony and I was just like wondering about my dad, and it was like quiet, everyone was asleep, and I was like out in the middle of nowhere, and I just was by myself, and I was praying, and I looked up at the stars, and I was like, is my dad gonna die soon? And I heard 2 weeks, you have 2 weeks. And it was so clear and so specific that I thought I was making it up and that I was being crazy. And so I called my dad like as soon as I left ceremony, but he didn't answer the phone. And then he called me back 2 or 3 days later, and he was all excited, and he left me this message, and he's like wanted to tell me something. And I was like, okay, he's fine. And I didn't call him back because I was like, oh, I'll get to it. I got distracted, and he literally died exactly 2 weeks to the day later. Yeah. And I was like, fuck. Why didn't I listen? I wanted to at least have one last conversation with him, you know? Like I had already said everything I needed to say, but I missed that opportunity because I didn't listen. Even though it's because it was too perfect. It was too clear. It was too specific. I must be making it up. That can't be real, right? I didn't trust my own intuition. That led me to ask in the quietest place that I was ever going to be in, right? So I could get that clear answer. So when he died, it was the weirdest thing. I felt like this humongous rush of energy and power. Like I felt like he was giving me this like huge boost of his life force. I don't know how to explain it any other way. It was so crazy. And he was just like, couldn't give me all these things in life, but in death, he was just like, come here. I got you.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really crazy. And I've actually feel like we had a better relationship since he died.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that a lot with the kind of spiritual, the soul connection is really beautiful. I suppose there's something that was transmuted in life that was hard, and then there's kind of gifts in the soul exchange. I love that. That's amazing. But
Yes.
also that you received that gift of life through death.
Yes.
Wow.
And I wasn't expecting it, and I felt so weird about it. It was hard to explain because on my human level, of course, I was very sad and
Yeah.
I was a mess that my dad was dead on a very human level. But on this other level, like I felt like this, like I felt this power like rushing through me, and I felt so like I felt him gifting me that, and it was like beautiful, you know. And I did feel a little conflicted because I'm like taught that death is not beautiful, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And through that kind of rite of passage that we've lost, of the kind of honoring of the gifts of it, obviously grieving the human experience of losing someone that you love in the physical and all of that, which is so important, isn't it? To be in those feelings and not to shut them down, because grief again is like kind of crone wisdom, I would call it, a window into how much, you know, into the experience of life, because we love it, and the grief is showing us that we love it, that we love the person that we love, and that we love deeply. So yeah, that grief, I would also say, is part of that crone sexual reclamation.
Yes, I love that you brought that in, because grief, as people say, grief is like like love that doesn't have anywhere to go, you know. So I really like that, and I feel like that ties to the deeper conversation of embodiment, and like what I was saying about avoiding the death. Right? The energy can't move. You can't be embodied if the energy's stuck, right? So when we allow those waves of grief to move through us, then we can actually be embodied, and then we can feel and we can experience, and life becomes richer and brighter and more intense and beautiful and succulent, you know?
Yeah. And the honoring of like, oh my God, this is a celebration that I'm alive, because I know the depth of the grief of not feeling alive, and just the dance of it is the feminine way, isn't it? It's the feminine way to really feel all of it and be nourished by it all, be enlivened by it all, like celebrate it. And yeah, I feel this is very deep stuff, but it feels like actually quite easy to talk about because it's Scorpio season.
Yeah, because the Scorpio energy is so thick right now. Okay, back to the astrology. One other thing. Yes. So we have something coming up in about 5 or 6 days, maybe. We have the Mars Sun Cazimi. So basically, short answer is Mars is going to be conjunct the Sun in a special way. Okay. So this is like a big deal. This specific thing does not happen often. It probably won't happen again with this Mars in this specific, you know, aspects that in the specific placements that we have now with Mars in Scorpio, Sun in Scorpio. I think for probably another 30 years. So probably not again in maybe some of our lifetimes, you know, if we get to live another, I don't know if we'll get to live another 30, 40 years. Anyways, so it's potent energy. It's of the energy of everything that we're discussing, right? See, people say that the energy is in the heart of the sun, So it's very like intense, right? And then you bring Mars intensity in Scorpio. Right?
Wow.
It's an extreme transformation on steroids, but it's also this is another reason why I'm like, no rituals right now, no rituals. It's also bringing some turbulent energy, some like, I'm feeling it for myself as like kicking my ass, like, let's fucking go, bitch. Like the universe is like, stop fucking around, get to work. You know?
So true. I'm feeling the same.
Get your ass up. You know?
Do it. You know what you need to do as well. It's always, you know what you need to do.
You already know. So
and then you question yourself, do I? The clarity can't be that obvious, like you were saying about, oh, they can't, I know I've got to like make something not right about what I'm hearing.
Right? Nah, I asked for the answer and it came. That can't be it.
That's not right.
Yeah, so that is starting approximately 2.5-year cycle, influencing this energy anchoring this energy into our lives, individually and in the collective. So doesn't necessarily look good on the war front.
No.
Doesn't necessarily look like things will be wrapping up astrologically. Now, I could be wrong, and things can always be interpreted in multiple ways, but from what I'm seeing, doesn't look great. With all this extra amplified Mars energy. So there's that. But in our personal lives, we can use this energy for good. You know, and we can also use it to anchor in the energy for the collective. So I was thinking about this in relation to war, because, you know, Mars is a planet that rules war. Pluto is a planet that rules death. That how can the thing that I believe that we can do that's most valuable to kind of diffuse the tension and the energy of death and war in the collective is to diffuse that energy within ourselves, right? Which goes back to the shadow work, which goes back to death and the grief. And it goes back to honoring the war and the tension within ourselves, right? And not necessarily trying to get rid of it, but honoring it, understanding it, integrating it, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like on the energetic side, that's what we're going to be called to do these next few years. And that's part of the work that maybe women like you and I are being called to.
Yes.
The universe is like, it's time, you're up. Get out there.
I want your voice. Can you send me voice messages? Go, get on with it.
People have told me that before.
I'm like, okay, Umoh has spoken. Honestly, it will work. I think that's something on like side note to do.
My like weird, like it's not like an 11 light. I'm just like, Spirit said, get your ass up and get to work.
Yeah.
What are you doing to work on your mission, bitch?
Honestly, a lot of people would really like that. Those of us who are more kinky on the side of needing to have that, like, I think that's why I like Scorpio so much. And I suppose that is the edge. The kink is the edge of the sexual energy.
Yes.
How can we work with our kinks to integrate as well? That could be an interesting question.
I love that you brought that up. I love it. I love it. So one of my favorite books, I know, how am I not remembering the name? It's called Your Brain on Sex, I think.
Ah, haven't heard of that one.
I don't know. I'll tell you. I'll find it out. What's the name? I think that is it. But anyways, it's written by this man. He's a sexual psychologist, and he talks about different kinks and fetishes and people's sexual fantasies. And he says basically how it's this doorway into our subconscious or our unconscious mind, and it's like basically this way we can reprogram and write a new story for these like traumatic events.
Yeah.
Which I am like, yes, because
Yeah.
I'm very into the kink and I'm very into sex as a healing modality, whether it's with yourself or someone else.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that you can kind of use that, like these different kinks or power dynamics outside of the bedroom to facilitate transformation and healing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great to hear about that book, because normally the one that people suggest is Existential Kink, which is another great book.
Yes, definitely.
But it's good to hear of others, because I think, you know, Scorpio season, let's read all of it.
Yes. Existential kink is awesome too. Existential kink is not about sex. It's about using that sexual kink paradigm as sort of a meditation tool. I don't know what to say meditation, it's not really the right word, but using that lens. You're putting that lens on to your spiritual inner work, which is amazing. But I also like to just have the sex beat the sex.
I love that. Just do the thing.
Yes. I'm like, let's talk about the sex that's just sex, not meditation sex.
I think come to Umoh if you want to talk about sex.
Yes. Absolutely. One of my favorite topics. I will always want to talk about sex. And like, I'm very interested in it from like all the aspects, the like interpersonal, the spiritual, the emotional, the psychological, the scientific. It's fascinating. It's so interesting.
It is fascinating. And it's good to have like an all-round person to talk to, because sometimes it's quite specific, isn't it? If we want a sex coach or something, it can be a little bit like, we're working with the spiritual side, but to be able to work with all the nitty-gritty and the emotional and the mental and the shadow and everything, I feel is really, I'm like, that's needed actually right now, quite powerfully.
That's what they're telling me.
Like,
time for sex. I'm like, oh, but I want to talk about other things. And like, nope.
I know that is the difficulty, isn't it? When you're like, I want to talk about this thing, and then you're getting a message to talk about the thing that you don't really want to talk about, or like, that is a bit edgy.
Yes, I'm like, I want to talk about it, but I'm like, but I don't want to get banned every 5 minutes. I don't want to scare people away. Like, I have my fear reasons, not even real reasons, just fear reasons of why. Yeah, for sure. It's our witch wounding, isn't it? Exactly. So like, we really have to talk about this, even though we are individually very capable of talking about it. That's what's fascinating, isn't it? But and it's like, so different to have a talk about it among ourselves in a safe space. Than it is to be continuously having the conversation out into in the world, the bigger spheres, you know. And I do feel like the weight of the importance of it right now, you know? Definitely. I was feeling a kind of calling. There's something in the kind of being able to call the right people so that you can have the deeper conversations actually in the coven, you know, where we can really go into it, and that we're not getting triggered all the time. Because I have to say, as much as people say get into your triggers and get out there and just say the thing, I don't fully agree with that. I feel like there are things that you need to keep
private, and privacy is actually a really deeply nourishing practice. So don't feel like you have to put everything out on show, because I've also done that too. That's actually been part of my sexual reclamation journey, is like, where am I feeling I'm having to, you know, where am I feeling I'm having to be overtly, you know, something? And that's got a fear element to it too, just the other way around. Rather than just stay down, it's like, you got to get up, but you got to, you know, it's the same thing. And I've had to really work on, well, what is truth for me? I don't really feel that. I feel that a lot of conversations and healing really powerfully happens when we can be in these spaces where we absolutely know that we're safe, and that is what we're doing. That is our intention.
I agree. I love that you brought that in, and I think it's so beautiful and so important, and it is a balance. And I'm kind of, in my mind, I'm seeing it as like walking the line between sexual priestess and prostitution. Like, and prostituting yourself.
Yes.
Right. And like, it's like, you know, we have to kind of have that dance in business, in life, regardless of what you're doing, whether sex is involved or not, you know. But it's heightened when you bring it into like the sexual arena. You know. So I love that you brought that in, and that's a piece that I totally think is so important, and I 100% agree with you, and it's not talked about enough. And you know, it's like, you don't have to do it any sort of way, and you shouldn't always be triggering yourself. Yes, you're going to have to push yourself. Yes, you have to get out of your comfort zone, but you don't have to be out in the front making yourself super uncomfortable all the time. And you get to choose where and when. You get to say like, okay, this I'm keeping for myself. So like, in my social media, I'm very vulnerable, and I talk about how I feel a lot, but I don't say the details. So people may feel like really close to me, but they don't actually know everything about my life. And I'm very intentional about that, because I am a very private person, even though life has given me the role to be a public person. You know? And so I think it's important to make those distinctions and those choices for yourself, and you get to say, and you get to draw those lines. And yes, you keep it in the coven, you keep it in these safer spaces, and you can change your mind if you want to bring out more later, but it's your choice of what feels good in your nervous system, because we can't function if we're triggered and overstimulated all the time.
Yeah. I feel like that's another conversation for us to have, because I'm really feeling that strongly with the years of social media that we've had now, and just the kind of like experience and the exposure and everything that we've all been doing with putting ourselves out all the time. I feel like there's a desire or a need or a conversation around those boundaries, finding them for yourself, really anchoring into them, knowing how to work with the energetics. That would be another great conversation.
I would love to talk about all of that.
This is just the beginning of our new moon opening.
Yes.
Very exciting. Did you have anything else that you wanted to share before we finish?
So I would say, if you are into astrology, you want to look at if you're advanced, look at your astrological chart, the circle, and you want to see what house or houses, depending on what system you use, Scorpio is in. And you want to, especially for this Kazemi, which is a big deal, you want to look at where the 25th degree of Scorpio is in your chart. And so whatever house that's in is telling you where your attention is being called for this energy. So mine's in my 10th house, almost right on my midheaven, which is your public persona. So this is for me all about my work in the world, right?
Okay.
So whatever house it's in, for you, let's say it was in your fourth house, which is opposite, then that's about you, like the more internal, right? That's about what's going on in the home front. That's what's going on for you behind closed doors in your house, where with outside of the public view, with your family, with your close relationships, you know, your partner, your children, whatever.
Be funny if it was in my fourth house.
Would be
right bang on.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you on that one.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm curious now.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Umoh. This has been powerful, really, really powerful and exciting to share space and to, share what wanted to come through.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you.
So I will put the info on how to get in touch with Umoh as well below this video. And if you have any questions for either of us, just let us know. You can message us or you can pop the comments below. And enjoy. This was a rich conversation.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you.
See you soon.